Hi, my name is Sterling Hart, and this is Dreamlight, where we work on dream interpretation and using the insights in the waking life. One of the main benefits of paying attention to dreams and interpreting them is to see our conditioning. Psychological dreams show us what's going on the previous day, for the most part. The previous day's contents, its issues, our feelings, our associations, our patterns become the subject matter of nightly dreams. But dreams are not simply a reflection of the way in which our mind sees things in the waking life. They are obviously put into dream symbolism, but they also have a different time frame. When we are in our daily lives, we tend to have a story for the things that we're focused on. So if we have a problem at work, there's a time frame that goes with the story of that problem. That person did this, and we did that. Then another person became involved and told us we can't do it that way, but we have to do something. There is a chain of events, contributing causes, and a what's going on. But the subconscious has a different sense of time. You can have a time frame that far exceeds what our waking consciousness sees. The subconscious relates to things from our past experience and also includes other factors going on that give shape to our views of the world. This can reveal things that develop over months or years or are even shaped by events of our childhood. The subconscious forms part of the way we see things. It's in a way we are not directly conscious of with the waking mind. We tend to take reality at face value, and even though we know, perhaps in the back of our mind, so it is good to remember that what we are seeing in waking life is an interpretation. Everything we perceive is interpreted by the mind. When a blind person has their eyesight restored through some medical intervention, some miracle, it will take them many months to be able to see even simple shapes because this has to be learned. Our vision of the world is not raw data, it is a product of the mind. In the United States, half of all wrongful convictions are due to witness testimony. Not just witness lying, but simple misrecognition. Memory is often unreliable. We don't remember some things, we selectively remember others, and these can become confused. My friend remembered going to a theme park as a kid with his sister, but when he worked out the date, he realized his sister hadn't been born yet. On asking his mom, she remembered the neighbor girl had gone with them, not the sister. Our vision of the world as a product of our mind can be examined through dream interpretation. The subconscious influence of our past conditioning can become more visible. Behind our interpretation of reality are various experiences that we've had that shape or condition how we see things. So many of these things are from our childhood, our education, or our upbringing, and we can say that we're conditioned in the same way that we might say that we're conditioned physically. We are prepared by our world and our experiences, and we have certain reactions and habits that are dependent on the external environment. For example, if you have a traumatic experience of being bit by a dog, that trauma can make you react to all dogs as hostile. They may seem threatening. You interpret their actions and their appearance that way, even when they may not be. But part of this conditioning is our values, our moral sense. When we look at situations, we largely interpret them due to the way we were raised. Our sense of where we fit in, our identity, our affiliations with groups, all of these things are part of our conditioning. Now, a greater part of this is subconscious. It's not necessarily things that we were formally taught. It's things that we pick up on before we really have the mental power to reflect on them, or even know that they're there. If you walk into a restaurant, and as you go to your table, you look around at the various people and groups, you will have stories about them. These stories contain elements on how they relate to you. This is your ego giving you a narrative bearing. Your ego tells you where you are in the story, and it is relative to others. All of these stories that you are perceiving may be false. They could also be true. So if you see a young man and woman sitting at the same side of the booth close to each other, you'll assume that they're on a date or that they're a couple. This is done through a combination of body language, clothing, and other elements. But all of this happens not necessarily via conscious thought, but from your subconscious perception. It may or may not be important to you in that moment. It may not even make it into your stream of consciousness, the one that sits on the surface. You may be concerned with other things like who is supposed to meet you for dinner, or who came with you, or the conversation that you were having in the lobby. But if somebody were to ask you when you got to your table, did you see that couple that was there? And then your mind would remember them and you would know who is being talked about because you did see that couple and you did identify them as a couple, regardless of whether this is true. So this is going on in dreams. These subconscious elements, some of them rooted in childhood, are coming up in dreams as part of the symbolism. We may think of these elements as part of the theme of the dream. As you interpret dreams and get better at it, you will pick up on several things. One is that there are often feelings that we don't really fully recognize, shaping our view of things. We know we are stressed, but we don't see the effects. These moods can have sources that are not directly apparent. For instance, we can feel sad and afraid and come to realize it is because our situation is changing and we have been so caught up in it and don't see what these changes mean to us. For instance, there can be sadness when we graduate from school because we lose our friends, even though we may be excited by the new challenges or proud of our accomplishment. Dreams will often point out these themes. A changing sense of self can be found in dreams, often before we realize in the waking time. But we can also begin to see the effects of the past, where we take up things that we have taken in subconsciously, where we have been conditioned to act and view the world in a certain way, to have expectations and boundaries because of the way our family lived and interacted. We may be open to influences or attracted or repulsed by certain people because of our subconscious conditioning interpreting a situation. Some people tend to repeat patterns in relationships. Finding partners in new relationships tend not to be built on conscious reflection of the old, but a recreating of conditions that seem familiar. Familiarity comes from our conditioning from past experiences. Interpreting dreams can open this window, bringing up the view of ourselves and giving us a medium of expression to work with these ideas. When we realize that something is from our past, it doesn't invalidate it. The genetic fallacy is because you know the origin of something, that something is invalid. But that doesn't follow. Merit is still merit. And there is never a situation of being pure or original. You are always moving from a past context into a new one. You can learn to be more open and aware, but it too is a conditioned way of being. As you focus on becoming aware of conditioning as revealed in dreams, then it will start to reveal these things in the waking time. This is knowing yourself. You become more aware in real time. You can catch yourself and choose how you react. Part of this is what you choose to give your attention to and what you value as important. For instance, you meet a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and you'll find that you start to react to them as they were a long time ago. And it may take you some time before you really start to see the person in a new way because of the conditioning you have from the past, all the memories that define who they are to you, the image of them that you have in your mind. It's almost a cliche to say that you become your parents. It is because you have picked up on the way that they behaved and saw the world, and their habits as you grew up with them. When you start becoming older and getting into similar life stages and situations, you find yourself taking on their identity. For instance, when you get married or become a parent, you fall back on this conditioning. How should I act as a married person? There are no classes. You will tend to act from the example of your parents. It is not the sole determinant. You may have many experiences and you may have developed in a very different direction because of things you saw your parents do. This too is part of conditioning, reacting by doing the opposite. So in dream interpretation, we can have a view to the inner process. This can lead you into insight into our changing life situations. We may see that a changing sense of self causes situations to change. For instance, we may no longer feel challenged or motivated like we once were at our job. It may lose its luster. This can lead to insight into our changing life situations. Situations may cause this, or our changing sense of self allow us to see situations differently. Or we may see a need to overcome our conditioning because it just makes us relive the past. We may aim to go beyond what we have done and experienced before, to see things in new ways, to expand our sense of self and change the self viewing the situation. Dream interpretation provides us with tools and something to work with. If you got something out of this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you want more dreams, then subscribe. Till next time.